gonzo journalist.
He was a genius.
Larger-than-life character.
Hunter, to his dying day, wanted to be thought of as an outlaw.
One of the most famous writers in the world.
Hunter is one of the funniest American writers in all history.
Hunter S Thompson was a man whose life was fueled by drugs, alcohol, and the desire to expose the truth about America.
He represents everything that's wrong in this country, down the line.
He was worshipped by fans, loved by celebrities. But in the end, it wasn't enough. After bringing his closest family members to his home in Colorado,
he went as long as he could.
He wrote the final chapter to his amazing life. February 19th, 2005. Hunter S. Thompson is at Owl Farm, his ranch and refuge just outside of Aspen, Colorado. He's 67 years old. In just 24 hours, he'll be dead. At the beginning of his last day, Thompson's 40-year-old son, Juan, and grandson, Will, are at the farm for a visit. Also present that day is Ben Fee.
Hunter's family came up to visit, and they were to stay for the weekend, and it had snowed, and Juan and Jennifer and Will were playing in the snow, and it was family time. It didn't happen very often.
But underneath the seemingly innocent scene, Hunter is hiding a dark secret. This is the last time he'll be seeing his family.
I think he must have known when he asked them down that that's when he was going to do it.
But before he goes, he has a few loose ends he wants to take care of.
Juan, get your ass in here, would ya?
What is it, Dad?
Something for you there.
Thompson presents Juan with a few of his most precious keepsakes. 2 silver cups that are Thompson family heirlooms. The box contains rare limited editions of an unpublished novel and an Aztec medallion, a reminder of Thompson's wild days.
Yes, you can. It's yours, okay?
He trusted Juan more than anyone.
Yeah.
And he knew that Juan loved him a lot. And he loved Juan a lot.
I can't take that, Dad.
Damn it all, I said take it. You understand what a present is?
The preparations for his death in less than 22 hours have begun. More than 3 decades before, Hunter S. Thompson exploded onto the scene when he wrote Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, a series of articles describing a drug-fueled trip across the desert.
You can read it out loud. It's like poetry. It's the choice of words and the images and the narrative and the voice. It's just brilliant.
And he understood the way that writing works as a voice and the way it's like breathing and the importance of its sound. Writing is a very intimate form of communication. You can't shout it to people because there's no sound involved. When you read something, the sound is occurring inside your own head, and it's a result of the rhythms that are created on the page. Hunter was a great student of these rhythms, and he understood writing physically.
It was fast, it was rebellious, and it was deeply shocking to mainstream America. Hunter Thompson became one of the leading figures of the 70s counterculture. His wild, drug-crazed antics, his politics, and his constant questioning of authority made him a hero for generations of young rebels across the globe.
I think probably Hunter mostly will be remembered as the wild man, the drug addict, the alcoholic.
He crossed divides, spending time with both the Hells Angels and President Nixon. He was immortalized as Uncle Duke in the Doonesbury cartoon strips. And twice, Hollywood came calling, turning his real-life adventures into movies.
There were people who were big Hunter Thompson fans who had never read his work. They liked the persona.
But his lasting legacy will be his writing. He broke the mold, creating a new kind of journalism, where he and drug-crazed antics became the center of the story. It was called Gonzo. By the end of his life, Thompson could look back on an incredible journey. He'd invented a whole new genre of writing, become a cultural icon, but his wild lifestyle came at a price. His body was now falling apart. A broken leg, 2 hip operations, and constant pain meant he could no longer live up to the legend he'd created. In less than 20 hours, Hunter S. Thompson will be dead. His final evening is spent in the cozy confines of his house in Colorado.
I met Hunter Thompson in the winter of 2004 at a party at his house, and Hunter asked me if I'd stay up there to write and doing some filming behind the scenes, and so I began going up at nights.
I mean, why did we bet on this game?
Once you stepped into the kitchen at Owl Farm, you were in his world. You could see a Tiffany's clock from a close friend right next to a petrified beaver, Muhammad Ali's golden boxing gloves, things that you'll never see anywhere else. It's really quite a museum.
Ben Fee has been living at Owl Farm for several weeks, helping Thompson write a weekly online column and recording his time spent with Thompson on videotape. Thompson's second wife, Anita, is also there.
In hindsight, it was the perfect setting for Hunter. He had his son and his grandson and his daughter-in-law, and he had Anita. And those were the people who he loved more than anything at that point. And he wanted them to be around for the release of his soul.
In the week before his death, Thompson wrote that for him, there were no more games, no more bombs, no more guns, no more wild fun.
He'd been talking about dying for ever since I knew him, but talking about actually shooting himself for something like 1.5 years, telling people close to him that this is what he was going to do.
He's now 67. He feels that going on is simply being greedy. All he's got to do is relax. What he's planning won't hurt a bit.
It was very succinct, very brief, and it was, I mean, the whole no more fun part is where the real meat of it is, in that Hunter realized that he just could not enjoy himself because he was physically as well as psychologically worn down like the eraser of a No. 2 pencil.
Unknown to his family, this is the last evening they will ever spend with Hunter Thompson. "67 years earlier, on July 18th, 1937, Hunter Stockton Thompson came into the world. He grew up in the conservative southern town of Louisville, Kentucky.
Hunter's early childhood was picture perfect. One could not imagine a more American family existence.
By the time he was a teenager, Thompson was already an important figure in his neighborhood. Lou Ann Murphy was his girlfriend.
We went to movies, we went to parties in people's homes. Sometimes we just hung out on my front porch. He was very confident, had a great air of assurance, and his body language just said, you know, I know where I'm going.
I haven't run across anybody who had the natural charisma that he had. You could walk into a room full of people, and the people would be gravitating to Hunter because he had a magnetism that none of the rest of us had.
His family wasn't rich, but Thompson wanted to be part of the Louisville elite. he used his charisma and early writing talent to gain access to the exclusive Athenaeum Literary Association.
The Literary Association gave him entree into that elite part of Louisville society. And I think he wanted desperately to be that.
A lot of them would be considered top young men in high school years in Louisville, Kentucky. He liked that.
But the picture book life changed forever when Thompson was 14.
His father, who had been this gregarious, quiet, but interesting, methodical individual, slowly but surely became fatigued, became ill.
A debilitating neurological disease was attacking Thompson's father. Eventually, he was admitted to the local veterans hospital.
And Hunter was completely powerless to do anything about it. It was a form of torture, you might say. And there he was, daily, watching his father wilt, wither, die.
On July 3rd, 1952, Thompson's father died. It hit the 14-year-old hard.
And I remember Hunter coming to my house at twilight, and we sat on our front porch for a long, long time, and then he would get up and pace. And I think he was just stunned.
An angry young Hunter Thompson started to lash out, vandalizing property and causing havoc around town.
He drank more than some of us did, and he had such a wonderful imagination. Instead of just drinking, he would want to go and do things, and some of the things were not great.
He pushed over mailboxes and smashed light bulbs and got drunk, you know, and chased after women, and he didn't go to school. He was fairly innocent, prankish, boyish behavior, which he sustained to the end of his life.
But now, Thompson, 52 years later, can feel his own body falling apart. He's in constant pain, and he's made up his mind. His death will not be slow and lingering. It's the middle of the night at Hunter S Thompson's farm in Colorado. He has less than 16 hours to live. His family has come for the weekend and are now gathered in the living room along with his second wife, Anita. They've been married for several years. At times, it's a volatile relationship.
Tricky Dicky didn't kick around anymore.
Hunter and Anita, they had their battles. They had their spats and their wars and yelling matches. They were like the gonzo Sid and Nancy. They could really have a go, but then, you know, they'd love each other right afterwards.
But tonight, Hunter is far from being the peacemaker. He and his wife are on a collision course.
At me.
Loaded?
I don't care if it's not loaded, just go.
Dr. Gary Kennedy is a psychiatrist who specializes in the effects of old age.
Sober as a judge.
With increasing age, and especially with people that become physically frail, heavy alcohol intake has a direct effect on the brain. And what's important here is those effects can make one less conscious, less aware of the effect that your behavior is having on other people.
He's a very big human being, full spectrum. And that all the wonderful, exciting, good, kind, generous, all of that was absolutely true.
Not loaded.
I don't care. What do you mean it's not loaded? You're drunk. How do you know
The dark side of Hunter
God damn it, Hunter.
was really bad. He was vicious.
The fear, you know, of having a gun point at you, it's pretty terrifying. So that shook Anita.
This was not fun. This was not a fun person. This was a really pained, angry, tortured man.
Hunter's antics have started a row with his wife that will simmer for the remaining hours of his life.
You know what? I can't take you anymore. I hate you.
41 years before, Hunter S. Thompson had left the stuffiness of Louisville, Kentucky far behind and was living in San Francisco with his first wife, Sondi, and their infant son.
I was very happy to be a mother. I had these two men in my life that I was madly in love with both. And so it was a very happy time for me.
Thompson decided to dedicate his life to writing. He began traveling, writing freelance articles for a variety of small magazines and newspapers.
He wanted to be a really good writer, you know, and he was so disciplined. I mean, he was very disciplined. He wrote every day. He rewrote everything. When I typed something for him, I mean, it had to be straight edges, you know, I mean, and there couldn't be any mistakes. It was well done. It was re-edited, exactly the right word. That was his idea of writing.
Thompson struggled to make a living, but he was determined to make it as a writer. In the spring of 1965, he started an ambitious project, an inside account of what was then a little-known motorcycle gang, the Hells Angels.
We had the Angels over to the house, and I'm thinking, you know, these are nice people, you know. They're not boring, and they're not insurance agents, you know. They're really not. They're kind of okay people. But I didn't realize that they were, you know, they were also dealing drugs, they were killing people, all kinds of stuff. But I didn't know that.
After a year of research, Thompson wrote Hells Angels, a strange and terrible saga of the outlaw motorcycle gang.
And he had to be careful with these guys, and he was.
When the book was published, the Hells Angels wanted a cut of the money. When Thompson refused, they beat him to within an inch of his life.
He was stomped, and really fortunately, you know, one of the guys, great, big, huge guy, got him out just in the nick of time, you know, because Hunter could easily have been killed.
But the literary critics were kinder. They loved the book. Finally, after years of rejection, Thompson had his first success.
Hunter I never heard him. You know, he had been a kind of an unsuccessful journalist for many years, sports writer, pretty much scuffling and getting a lot of rejections and failure. For 10 years, he was not a success. And he came out with this book called Hells Angels, and it was stunning. You know, it was just a magnificent book, and I'd never read anything like it before.
But at the same time Thompson was beginning his literary career, he was also beginning a long-standing relationship with drugs.
I remember very, very well the first time Hunter took acid. I didn't have a clue about what this would mean, but I have a little boy in a crib, and I was terrified. I was just terrified that Hunter was going to be violent. And then he asked me for the gun. And I said, no. And he said, I want the gun. If you don't give me the gun, I am throwing this boot through that window. And he did. And I was just really scared. Mostly I was scared for Juan. You know, I didn't know what might happen. And I reached up, you know, Hunter is 6'3", I'm 5'4.5". I reached up and just clawed. I mean, here the guy's on acid, you know, and I took my fingers and I just clawed his face, actually drew blood.
Thompson's next big literary assignment was an article on the 1968 Democratic Convention in Chicago. But demonstrations outside the convention center soon turned ugly. The police used tear gas, dogs, and brute force to break up the crowd. Thompson, the young journalist, was caught in the middle.
He was in the crowds, and he saw many people beaten. Some people that he knew, and he just, and he saw the policemen beating these, you know, mostly young people. When he came back, I only saw Hunter cry twice in 19 years. He cried. He was telling me the story of how everyone was getting beaten, and it made a huge difference to him.
Thompson himself said the battles with police were a turning point. Years later, he proclaimed in Rolling Stone that that week in Chicago was worse than the most grotesque acid trip, that it permanently changed his whole chemistry. Suddenly, it became essential to confront those who had slithered their way into power and were causing these things to happen.
He was deeply offended about what was happening in America. As most thinking people are, it's a great dream, America, but the reality is really upsetting frequently to people who can see the options and the possibilities.
You are on our property which you are defacing. If you do not leave, you will be subject to arrest.
Yeah, he was cared a lot about America. He was a real, he was a Southern boy. He was an American.
Thompson was determined to somehow get into politics. When he moved his family north to Aspen, Colorado, he got his opportunity. He was asked to run for sheriff. He jumped at the chance to showcase his very own brand of politics.
It was different from a campaign would be now because there's an already established liberalist view of law enforcement in town. Back then, the sheriff before Hunter, Carol Whitmire, was your classic cowboy redneck sheriff.
Marijuana laws are one of the reasons that has engendered this lack of respect that that cops complain about all over the country.
I think it's a good thing that Hunter Thompson is running, because I think it makes us all aware of the power that's involved in the job.
At least they have some new ideas, which is more than the old people.
Thompson advocated planting grass in the town's streets and punishing people who sold bad drugs. Michael Solheim was his campaign manager.
We would start with stuff like that, but then we would build into the ideas about the control of growth in this town. We were out doing meetings around town, mostly in the evenings at the various lodges and stuff, and inviting all the Aspenites to come and meet Hunter and listen to what his ideas are.
Remarkably, Thompson's campaign seemed to be gaining ground.
I remember one night we were sitting upstairs up there, and that was the day that it first occurred to us that we might win the damn thing. I said, what are we going to do if we win?
Okay, here's the totals. Whitmire, 204, Hunter, 173.
In the end, Thompson lost by less than 500 votes.
It's very hard to have a bald-headed lunatic. I'll do that for the cameras. All right! I've already made up my mind, as a matter of fact. This is my last trip in politics. Or this kind of politics. I assure you I'll be in other kind of politics. I'm not sure which way I'll go, but it'll be one or the other. It won't be down this middle anymore.
Once the running for office thing was behind, he preferred to be plotting up an owl farm and, moving the pieces from behind the scenes. But when lending his celebrity to a cause would actually do some good, he wouldn't hesitate to do so.
Thompson would never run for office again, but for the rest of his life, he used his writing as a platform to rail against the establishment. It's the early hours of the morning. Hunter Thompson is alone. He's in constant pain. He has 14 hours before he will choose to end his life.
Well, physically, he was in crummy shape. He'd had a surgery or two, and, the bad broken leg and all that stuff takes a toll on anyone that age. So, yeah, he was in crummy shape.
At 3 a.m., Thompson calls Ben Fee and Juan.
Hey, Benny.
He wants company.
What are you guys doing? Tonight he's young.
And it occasioned is taking painkillers, which were not any better for him than they are for anybody else. And, lots of painkillers make you depressed, and they kind of make your situation seem more and more trapped.
Cheers.
And Juan and I went over and sat with Hunter for a long time, for several more hours. He had a moment where he was scared that he was going to have his freedom stripped, his ability to live the way he enjoyed to live, you know, with guns open on the counter. So we read his old works and tried to keep it light and upbeat, get his mind off of it.
You could strike sparks anywhere. There was
That sense of
fantastic.
inevitable victory.
It was about 7 in the morning when Hunter went to bed.
That was good.
And I asked Juan if he ever feared for his father's life. He didn't seem to believe that it was right around the corner. Juan knew his father and knew how it would end, but I don't think Juan saw it coming up like it did.
"35 years earlier, Hunter S. Thompson changed the face of journalism. He returned to the city of his birth, Louisville, to cover the Kentucky Derby for Scanlan's magazine. As the deadline for the article approached, the magazine became anxious to get their copy.
And they said, you have to send us something. He said, I don't have anything. All I have is garbage. And they said, well, you have to send it. I can't. It's not lucid. They said, send it to us. He sent it to them, and they said, this is great.
Even though Thompson wasn't convinced by his new style, others saw it as a breakthrough.
My view is that it actually was quite a polished piece. It was just a rather of a radical style. And it was consistent with a kind of journalism that was getting more and more radical, starting with Norman Mailer on the steps of the Pentagon and Armies of the Night, and Tom Wolfe, you know, the acid Kool-Aid test, and this kind of personal journalism where you put yourself in the story and you write in the voice, the narrative voice that you recognize. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll narrative voice. It was like the way people talk.
Thompson's new style was a break from his previous work. It was considered so unique it was given a name: gonzo journalism. Whether accidental or planned, Thompson's gonzo style became more concrete in 1971, when he took a long, drug-frenzied journey from California to Las Vegas with attorney Oscar Acosta. They're somewhere in the deserts outside Barstow, California, when the cocktail of drugs explodes in his brain. Suddenly, even the simple act of driving becomes fraught with frightening visions. He audio hallucinates a terrible roar, while all around what looks like huge bats are swooping and screeching. Thompson screams, "Holy Jesus, what are these goddamn animals?" What Thompson had put to paper was wild, manic, and like nothing anyone else was writing. He's still ogling and groping the American dream, that pale, exhausted vision of the big winner stumbling like a drunk out of an impassive and stale Vegas casino. The articles he wrote were turned into a novel, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Hunter Thompson was just 34 years old, and already he'd created a classic.
He could cut to the sort of essence of the truth of what was going on by fictional techniques such as metaphor or imagination or fantasy. He was brilliant, absolutely.
But more than that, he'd created a fictional Hunter S. Thompson, the wild, drug-taking, bourbon-swilling gonzo journalist at the center of the book. As Thompson grew older, he would find it increasingly difficult to play that character. After a short sleep, Hunter S. Thompson rolls out of bed. In 4 hours, he'll take his own life. His wife Anita is doing her best to forget the fight of the night before. She gets ready to drive into town for a yoga class.
Morning. It's Mr. Bowie. Good morning, Mr. Bowie.
Okay, well, you have a nice day, too.
The day begins like Thompson's days have for much of the last 50 years, with liberal amounts of alcohol.
Diggity dog. Protein. We're good.
It's very, very difficult to separate the writer from the bourbon drinker, and it never ever stopped. And it went on to his dying day. It was an essential part of him.
He was what I would call a professional drinker, and of course a famous drug user in a what I would call an intelligent way. That he wasn't a crash and burn sort of a guy.
Look, last night, is that it? I'm sorry.
At breakfast, Thompson tries to apologize to his wife Anita for pointing the gun at her the night before.
Control what? You know,
It was very difficult to live with Hunter. It was exciting. It was, at times, really loving and romantic. But I would say most of the time, it was very hard. Mostly because Hunter was so angry.
This was an impulsive person, attract and command attention, was a subject of adulation. He was novel. He was original. But with age, that impulsiveness ceases to be so much of an advantage. And when you no longer have the emotional high that comes from that kind of attention, how do you replace that?
I've been out of control for 50 years, honey. What's new?
I gotta get out of here. I'm going to the gym.
As his wife leaves, she has no idea that this will be the last time she will see him alive. "33 years earlier, after the great success of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Rolling Stone magazine sent their new star on the road again. The assignment was to cover the 1972 U.S. presidential campaign.
We now in election day and elect George McGovern and defeat Richard Nixon. I'm concerned that Richard Nixon will be...
That's what this is all about. Thank you.
There was a feeling that this was an election that could defeat Nixon, that something exciting might happen. There wasn't such a clear distinction between the music and the politics. The music was going to set us free. That was our motto.
Thompson was supposed to bring the rock and roll mentality to the campaign.
Richard Nixon represents the dark side of the American dream. Richard Nixon stands to me for everything that I not only have contempt for, but dislike and think should be stomped out. Greed, treachery, stupidity, cupidity. Nixon represents everything that's wrong with this country. Down the line. He can't even walk. You know, he walks around with this kind of, how are you? I'm Richard Nixon.
Tim Ferriss was an editor with Rolling Stone.
A button he had printed up once said, you know, I'm not like the others. He wasn't like the rest of the press corps. Even conservative American political figures like Pat Buchanan, you know, would say that Hunter was writing the funniest stuff about politics they'd ever read. It was really astonishing material.
Fear and Loathing on the Campaign Trail 72 was a collection of stories Thompson wrote about the race. It was supposed to be released immediately after the election, but Alan Rinsler, Thompson's editor, was getting increasingly worried about the deadline.
He and I had exchanged really hostile letters prior to this meeting because I'm an intrusive kind of do what's needed to be done kind of hands-on editor. I didn't want to just wait for him. I knew he was notoriously late with everything. And what I realized ultimately was that he was not going to write this book. He was not going to finish it on time. I would have to actually sit with him the entire time. Food was brought in constantly, though he didn't eat much because he was taking so much speed. And cocaine. It was a non-stop, you know, 72 hours at a stretch, collapse, 72 more at a stretch, collapse kind of experience. And we had tape machines in those days. People would come pick up the tapes, rush away to the office, and work all night transcribing the tapes or all day, and bring back the pages, and that was the kind of way you had to work to get it done with Hunter.
Not only was Rinsler dealing with a writer who found it hard to write, he was also dealing with an author who was finding it increasingly difficult to find his groove.
He tried to tune up his mind through drugs and alcohol to the point where he was having like grandiose visions and flights of tremendous creative imagination. I mean, it's true. And he'd try to capture that. But then there'd be too much of it, and then he'd start to turn to jelly, and he couldn't think straight at all.
Finally, after a huge consumption of narcotics and a great deal of help from his editor, the book was written. Once again, it was a success, but from here on, the writing got harder.
I've been with a lot of writers, and it's hard for everybody, but for Hunter, it got harder and harder. It was a hard act. He was himself a hard act to follow.
The drink and drugs that had once inspired Thompson became a permanent fixture, and bit by bit began to rot his brain.
Absolutely, you can't do that forever. He was a big, strong guy, and he had a high tolerance. But after 40, 50 years of steady, daily, never being sober, I think it gets to you. A lot of people I know from that era either died or disintegrated or straightened out.
After more than 30 years of fighting against the political tide of the United States, Thompson is preparing to withdraw from the race once and for all. It's February 20th, 2005. Hunter S. Thompson has gathered his family for one last weekend at his ranch in Aspen, Colorado. On the last morning of his life, his knee hurts, his hips hurt, his back is sore. In 2 hours, he will shoot himself.
Well, Hunter was extremely free. He insisted on his freedom, and he exercised his freedom to a degree that's unknown to most mortals on a day-by-day basis. And I'm not just talking about freedom of speech, but freedom of action. And when that freedom began to be limited by the fact that he couldn't walk right, that he was in physical pain from a bad back and back surgery, bad knee and stuff, bad broken leg, I think the thing that most troubled him about it was the prospect of that he was looking at a permanent narrowing of his freedom.
He'd been, blessed with an athlete's body all his life, and all of a sudden it all kind of starts to fold up at once over a short period of time. Is going to be a horrible blow to anyone. So his physical problems were a big part of his life at that point.
He types a cryptic word on his typewriter. It's the last thing he will ever write. Its meaning remains a riddle. It's 3:30, February 20th, 2005. Thompson calls his neighbor, Ed Bastian.
Hey, Eddie, get over here. All right? There's gonna be some shooting.
Hunter was someone who never expected to be 30 years old, much less 40 or 50. He lived his life knowing that he was living dangerously and enjoying himself on a day-by-day basis. He always emphasized that it was fine with him if he didn't live a long life. And as he got older, he often said that he wasn't afraid to commit suicide, that this was a kind of an exit door that he regarded as being perfectly defensible.
Hunter S. Thompson has just 2 hours left to live. "26 years earlier, Thompson published The Great Shark Hunt. The book is a collection of his best writing stretching back to the early 60s. Thompson was only 41 years old, but already he was writing a retrospective. He compares it to etching words onto his own tombstone. There seems nothing left. He said all there is to say. Beyond, he can foresee nothing but a quick exit straight down, right off his 28th floor hotel terrace. No one could follow up his act, let alone Hunter S. Thompson."
Well, as you read his chronology throughout his career, one of the things that made him great was he took risks. He went into areas that were not necessarily safe for journalists, from his first work in Hell's Angels to the Chicago convention, and that riskiness paid off with his creativity, but also with that risk went a self-destructive strain.
Thompson continued to write articles for Rolling Stone, but nothing he did could win the same critical acclaim of his earlier works.
Once you'd written Hell's Angels and Fear and Loathing, I mean, you got to keep raising the bar. But Hunter's particular psyche and personality, he was, you know, insecure, and he was, you know, he was very anxious all the time.
So the money, the fame, the hallucinogenics, those are all different ingredients. And so Hunter began to morph. He began to change a bit. I had lived to help him be this great writer. Well, this great writer wasn't writing, and he wasn't writing great things. And what am I doing?
Sondi, Thompson's wife for over 15 years, had had enough of the Hunter Thompson circus and left.
I had no sense of myself. I didn't think I could do anything. I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't this enough. I wasn't good enough. So when I left, I still loved Hunter, but there was no way that I could live this life anymore.
Thompson had become known as much for his excessive behavior as for his writing. Hunter S. Thompson, the writer, became more and more Hunter S. Thompson, the character.
And, you know, when there'd be an event with a lot of people at our farm, Hunter would put on his sunglasses and the cigarette holder and the visor, and he'd become that public persona. You know, and those of us who were closest to him would kind of back off and let the fans move in.
Ladies and gentlemen, Hunter S Thompson!
Thompson began to cash in on his notoriety, charging large fees to appear in front of crowds of adoring students.
I saw him speak at Cal once, and he got up on the stage, he was so drunk, he just fell over and passed out. And people had paid a lot of money, and he was paid something like 25 grand to do that. He was on the stage for like 6 minutes. And that was his public persona for many of his public appearances.
I remember once Hunter was cited and I think had to pay a fine for setting off a fire extinguisher on stage at some talk he was giving somewhere. And he told me rather sheepishly that, I said, well, you know, why'd you do that? And didn't you know that it was, you know, there are statutes against it now? And he said, well, I thought it was expected of me.
But Thompson's wild antics weren't just for his public appearances.
I'm gonna blow the hell out of him. That wouldn't be good.
Okay. One of his favorite things was to get a gallon jar and fill it with gasoline.
I'm gonna move your gloves up, man. They're gonna goddamn get wet. You know that.
And there were these little exploding targets, but he'd attach them to a gallon of gasoline. The first time, he says, Michael, go into the living room and get a fire extinguisher. I go to get the fire extinguisher, and I'm standing about 20 feet away. He says, no, stand right here behind me. I said, Hunter, if I stand here and you catch fire, I'm gonna catch fire. So I'll just stand over there. He gave me a really disgusted look.
Fire was big, breaking glass. Yeah, blowing things up. Yeah, that's violence. That's chaos.
The first time I met him, he actually handed me, I'll never forget this, a fistful of lit Roman candles. They were lit. He said, here, Rizzler, hold this. you know? And it was like, if you're gonna play with me, you gotta be fearless. And so I took them, and then they went off and just shot into the air.
Yeah, Hunter loved loud noises and explosions and unexpected things.
There's a theory about drug abuse and alcohol abuse that, in a sense, when you start using, you stop growing internally, and you don't mature, you don't develop as an adult. You're stuck in 16, 17, 18. And in many ways, I believe that's the key to Hunter's personality. He was a big kid.
His public appearances and outrageous behavior did nothing to tarnish his reputation. In the late 90s, his most famous book, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, became a Hollywood movie starring Johnny Depp. And when John Kerry ran for president in 2004, he could still invoke Thompson's name.
A few forwards to put you at ease. Vice President Hunter Thompson.
But even though Kerry could use Thompson's name to get a laugh, Thompson hadn't been taken seriously as either a political commentator or a writer in years.
Later on, as politics moved in its course and the country changed, to keep on with that kind of political commentary would have required learning quite a lot about how the landscape was changing, and Hunter wasn't really interested in doing that.
I don't think the books were very good, the last bunch of books. He got into kind of an ESPN sports writing thing that was kind of hack work. He just couldn't keep it up. And I think that starting in 1982 or 3, for the last 20 years of his life, his work was just to make a living and to provide a new product for publishers who were willing to pay him large advances, because anything that with his name on it would sell. But the quality of his work, I think, really after 1982, just became repetitious and flat.
As the years dragged on, Thompson's writing was becoming increasingly irrelevant. As old age set in, he would rely on his favorite gun, a .45 Smith & Wesson, to make his final statement to the world. It's late afternoon. Hunter S. Thompson has less than half an hour left to live.
Hello.
Hi, it's me.
His wife Anita calls from a local fitness club. Once again, Thompson apologizes for his behavior the night before. This is the last conversation Hunter Thompson will ever have.
Hunter was speaking with Anita on the phone, and they were reconciling, and he was speaking with her and telling her that everything was going to be okay.
Elsewhere in the house, Thompson's son Juan watches over his own son, 6-year-old Will.
Stop it. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm at the gym. I'm finishing up.
This is a sea of gonzo thongs, I hope?
Yes.
Well, listen, babe, I'm sorry about last night. Okay, I'm sorry, but I really love you. Come on home, will you?
Okay, I love you too. Hunter? 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 Hunter?
What? What's wrong? What's wrong?
No. Juan blew past me as I was on my way over, white as a ghost. I had no idea, but I could tell that something wasn't right.
I was with Bob Broaddus, our sheriff, and Bob got a call from one of his deputies saying that there'd been a gunshot out at Hunter's. And we all looked at each other and just knew that was it. That was it.
Jennifer and Will were horribly shaken. It was so surreal and shocking. I stepped closer, and Juan interrupted me, and he grabbed me and said, "Don't don't come closer, please.
My son to this day and my daughter-in-law both feel that they are glad that they were there to take care of things and also to see him and feel his body, and so that it was very, very real.
Hunter S. Thompson died at 5:45 p.m., February 20th, 2005. He was 67 years old.
He was born a genius, and he was born with that charisma. And he was also born with that tortured soul. And where that comes from, I don't know.
Marvin Gaye was a superstar, a Motown legend.
He was the prince of Motown, and he was truly that kind of a person.
He had that kind of charisma where the ladies just loved him.
But the smooth exterior and golden voice hid another very different Marvin Gaye. Paranoid, suicidal, addicted to cocaine.
When he was good, he was really, really good, and when he was bad, he just wanted to get the hell out of the way.
In 24 hours, a lifelong family feud would finally come to an end. Marvin will be dead, shot by his father. March 31st, 1984. Marvin Gaye is one of the most successful recording artists in the world. After a grueling year-long tour, he's retreated to his parents' house in LA. In less than 24 hours, he'll be dead. For the past 6 months, Marvin has been struggling with a growing depression.
There came a time when he just put on a bathrobe and was just there in the house. He just never left.
It was crazy, dog. We didn't everything about it, though. Hey, what's up? How you doing? Hey, bro, come on, Marvin. Come on in, dog. Hey,
Marvin Gaye is addicted to cocaine. Since moving in with his parents, his use has increased steadily. It's caused tension with his father, having junkies and dealers constantly coming to the house.
what's been up?
When Marvin came back to LA, he just wanted to be left alone, but everybody came out of the woodwork. So there was constant traffic at the house, day and night.
Is that a fact? You know, yeah, we can party here. Yeah?
Any normal household doesn't have 20 or 30 people coming and going all day long, every day. And it gets old very quick, and Father was just tired of it.
I know she was all over.
It's a little too much activity for him. He liked to remain peaceful in his room without any activity going on around him.
Marvin and his father have been locked in a power struggle since he was a child. But now Marvin is the breadwinner. He bought the family home in LA, a fact his father resents.
There's a struggle between who was going to be the head of that family. And theories, life and religion and everything else, and all the blow and everything that's going on there in his house. His father would think, I guess, which it was, I guess.
The one person who's always held the family together is Marvin's mother. She has her own bedroom between her husband and her son.
I think the deal that Marvin had was he started putting his mother in the middle of it because, you know, I can't fight you back there, but I can get mama for you, and she loved him to death. And he basically used his mama, you know, against his daddy.
Marvin's mom, in many ways, was a peacemaker and a negotiator and a referee and a nurturer. I think that she was his anchor. I think that she was the one place that he felt love.
My father always knew there was a closeness between Marvin and his wife. He always knew that.
Marvin's father is jealous of their relationship and his son's success.
They were like in two different worlds. They didn't acknowledge each other. I've never seen such a strained relationship between two people. You could kind of feel the vitriol.
You know, there seemed to be some love there, but they were always in conflict. They were always seemingly in conflict.
In 22 hours, the bitter hatred between father and son will explode in violence. "45 years before, in Washington, D.C., Marvin Pence Gaye was born, the second of 4 children, the son of a preacher.
My father was a very strict man. He believed in discipline, very much so. And being a minister in a church, and you know what people say about preachers' children, sometimes feel the worst. I've heard that all my life. So he was determined we were not going to be the worst.
He just wanted the perfect family. And everything had to run the way that father wanted it because he had this dream of, you know, the perfect family.
Marvin's father enforced his will through violence.
We were punished, and Marvin received more punishment than the rest of us because he was a maverick. I always called him that. Even as a child, he did things differently.
Marvin would test father. Frankie would tell me Marvin would test father a lot.
The power struggle that they had actually was, in many ways, a way that Marvin sought approval and acceptance from his dad.
Instead of using compassion, softness, tenderness, then he began to dictate and dominate. And he became a force, a power in his family, which turned his children.
From age 7, Marvin suffered routine whippings. He also had to endure the shame of having a father who wore women's clothing.
His father was not only a cross-dresser, but he was a very flamboyant and out there cross-dresser.
He'd have his little, you know, ladies' slippers on, pumps, and, you know, slide around and sandal things and waltz around. He was proud of it, so he didn't care.
Neighbors knew about Marvin's father. Kids called him names, sissy and homosexual.
The image of his dad as a preacher, this powerful, cross-dressing, church front preacher who would come home and wear his wife's clothes. The shame that imposed upon Marvin.
Marvin's childhood was a daily torment, full of pain and confusion. His salvation was music. At age 5, Marvin began singing gospel. His voice won him instant praise.
People were amazed at his voice. He loved all the attention he was getting. All the nice things they were saying to my mother and father. Where did this boy get such a beautiful voice?
Marvin's voice was his ticket out of his father's house. By his late teens, Marvin was singing for money. His father was furious. To him, it was the devil's music.
He did not sanction his son going into the secular world. And that was one of the things that hurt him so bad. He was permitted to do it or to venture into that field by his mother.
She supported him, she encouraged him. And I think that is one of the primary reasons that she was so important in his life. She symbolized for him what it would be like, unconditional love.
Resented by his father, indulged by his mother, this dynamic would define Marvin Gaye's life. But it was his father's ominous threat that would end it.
My father has always taught us, even from children, that we don't talk back, number one, and we certainly don't act as though we want to do any harm, number two. And he's always said if we did anything, to raise our voices at him in that manner or to strike, that he brought us in this world, and he can take us out. He used to tell us that we were little kids.
The children knew to take his threat seriously. And on the last day of Marvin Gaye's life, his father would prove himself a man of his word. Los Angeles, California. It's late afternoon. Soul superstar Marvin Gaye has just 18 hours to live. He's staying with his parents, a father who beat him as a child and a mother who's always been his strongest support.
Marvin and his mother had a wonderful relationship. They were really close and, shared a lot of things together, and they loved to laugh together. You could walk, down the hall in the house and you would hear laughter coming from the bedroom. And they had a good time together.
But there was always tension in the house.
It doesn't take much for things to erupt, you know that. So that particular day, of course, was a day that my father had been drinking. And there was an argument with my mother over some business papers.
Unpaid taxes and 2 divorces have forced Marvin to sell off his properties. Gaye Sr. is worried his home might be in jeopardy.
There was just a lot of everything folding. The studio's gone, the Hidden Hills is going, this is going, that's going, it's all gone. What else is gonna go? And I think it might have been in the back of Father's mind. Plus, him just trying to make sure that his son knew that he was a failure, no matter how famous he was.
Look at that!
Mother! Knowing my father, he probably raised his voice at my mother. I don't think Marvin would have intervened if he didn't think he had to protect my mother from something.
Hey, who do you think? What are you talking about? What are you looking at?
Knowing Marvin, he probably told him not to talk to his mother that way. And knowing my father, he probably told him to stay out of it. And knowing Marvin again, he probably stayed in it.
Listen, look, don't you ever... Get out. Get out.
Marvin, please don't speak to the father.
Marvin's reliance on cocaine is making him edgy, volatile, and paranoid. He's convinced someone is trying to kill him.
He had a .38 pistol in his pocket at all times, loaded. I told him about how worried I was. In fact, he was doing these drugs and he never came out of the house. And he was walking around with this loaded pistol. And I said, I'm really worried about it. He said, oh, Dave, you don't have to be worried.
But there's good reason to worry. The house is stockpiled with weapons. When Marvin moved back home 6 months ago, he gave a gun to his father.
You know, one of the biggest ironies is that Marvin thought he was being chased and followed and pursued, and someone was looking to kill him. So he gave his father a gun so his father might shoot the person looking to kill Marvin.
It was a fateful decision. Marvin had put the gun in the hand of his killer. 23 years before, Motown, the music industry machine that would soon churn out a dizzying number of hits, was just finding its feet. In 1960, Motown was the only record label that gave black artists a shot at becoming superstars. Marvin Gaye was chasing that dream.
He was a drummer, and he hung around the studio, and he was looking to get noticed, and the competition was keen. His initial struggle at Motown was to get people to pay attention to him.
Marvin's boyish good looks caught the public's eye. His velvet voice made them listen. In just over a year, he had a hit song, Stubborn Kind of Fellow. Gaye was making a name for himself, but with the spotlight came hurtful rumors.
They came to my dressing room and said, "You have a call backstage." And I went to the phone, and when I got there, they said, "Did you know that Marvin was gay?" And I just hung up the phone because I got upset about it. But people teased him about the G-A-Y.
Marvin wasn't gay, but questions about his sexuality brought back the shame he felt as a child, as the son of a cross-dresser. Before going on tour, Gaye added an E to the end of his name. But on stage, there was no confusion. To his female fans, Marvin Gaye was a sex symbol.
I remember on one of the Motown reviews, the fans went crazy. And I'm walking down this big hallway, and I hear somebody say, Kim Weston, Kim Weston. Oh, man, am I glad to see you. And I look around and hear Marvin hiding in the doorway. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "They're everywhere." All the girls were after him, so he's gonna walk with me to find out where I was going. As soon as we walked out the door, there was a bunch of them. He said, "Oh, there he is." And he just didn't know what to do. He tried to run, but they got him. So I walked onto the bus. I said, "I think you all better go rescue Marvin," because they got him back there.
Marvin had his pick of admirers. In 1963, he chose Anna Gordy, sister of Motown head Berry Gordy. She was 17 years older than him.
There was a mother image there, and I think he saw things in her that he may have desired his mother to have, because his mother was very passive, and Anna was, she was out there.
Anna was more than a mother figure. She was a powerful woman who could help his career.
Like everything else in Marvin's life, I think Marvin's relationship to Anna was really complicated. I think they loved each other deeply, but she was a Gordy, and he saw in her a way to climb the ladder of success and give him a head start on everybody else.
Soon, Marvin got top billing and became one of Motown's biggest names. He had a unique style. It was so unusual that his recording of I Heard It Through the Grapevine was initially shelved.
It was so different, we just could not picture it in the top 10. We knew it was good, it was super good, but it was just way too different. And so finally they decided to recut the song on Gladys Knight and the Pips.
I Heard It Through the Grapevine was a hit for Gladys Knight and the Pips. The song's success convinced Motown to release Marvin's version in 1968. It immediately outsold Gladys Knight's and became Motown's biggest single ever, selling nearly 4 million copies.
What it did for Marvin was it gave him clout, and it set him up for his next move, which was, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm not going to be produced by anybody else. I'm going to write this suite of songs that pays no attention to what their playing on the radio these days. I'm going to become an artist with a capital A, and that means my first allegiance is to my art and not to commerce and not to making Mr. Gordy happy or anybody else happy, that I have to make my own sort of personal muse happy. And I have to answer to God, not to the Motown Corporation. So Heard It Through the Grapevine was the key that unlocked the door to Marvin's independence.
The success of Grapevine freed Marvin of the controlling influence of Berry Gordy and allowed him to record the songs that would make him a superstar. Evening has fallen on Los Angeles. Marvin Gaye has just 15 hours to live. He is staying with his parents in LA, where he spent the afternoon in a bitter argument with his domineering father. Marvin is addicted to cocaine. In his paranoid delusions, he believes someone is trying to kill him. For protection, he stocked the house with guns, but now fears his brother, who lives next door, wants to harm him.
Where's my gun?
What do you need a gun for?
What do you mean I need a gun? People are after me.
You don't need a gun.
I need a gun.
Come on, Marvin.
Frankie said, Marvin, you don't need a gun. And he goes, oh, even you've turned against me, now I can't trust you.
Calm down.
I knew where the gun was, so I went and got it. And I made sure there were no bullets in it. And I gave Frankie the gun. Because I saw how upset Marvin was getting.
Give me my gun.
And he took the gun from Frankie.
No, you got what you want.
And he checked, and there were no bullets. So he got really upset because he wouldn't help him. And then he walked out the door. And before he slammed it, he just said, even you're not my friend anymore. You've turned against me. He just slammed the door and walked down the steps.
The hell with you. You are not my brother.
Desperate, Frankie calls their friend Dave Simmons to come up with a plan to help Marvin.
Dave, hey, it's Frankie. Listen, man. We were just determined to do something. We had no idea what we were going to do exactly, whether we had to actually physically restrain him. We had no idea where we were going to try to take him to. But we just knew that we had to do something.
Frankie was just like, you know, what have I done wrong? You know, I'm just trying to protect him. Frankie knew what state of mind he was in and how he was just being tormented inside and was totally miserable, and he just didn't want to see him get in more trouble.
He was crazy. He had gotten really just gone really crazy, you know. And the way Frankie described the way he looked physically, you know, he said he was just, had his coat all buttoned, kind of crazy, and he was just out of it, gone, you know.
Dave and Frankie are convinced Marvin needs treatment.
Marvin had told my mother he was going to go to a hospital and dry himself out. And she was holding him to that promise. And he was gearing up towards it, too. So he never went, but he was going to.
In reality, Marvin's cocaine abuse is getting worse. In the last few years, he'd started freebasing. The drug was killing him slowly.
It was crazy because it destroyed him, basically, because, you know, most of the membranes in his nose were gone. It had burned out. And, you know, I don't know. I know, you know, he always smoked. But that was nothing, you know, just smoke. But then I think he probably smoked less and just did more cocaine. Just got to the point where it just took over everything, and you know, he was just not himself at all, you know.
Many black people have a very high tolerance for discomfort. I believe that, you know, we feel bad all the time, and that's just the way it is for us, and we'll deal with it. So I'm not surprised at all that Marvin Gaye never sought treatment, because I think that he believed that he should be able to do this on his own.
In the final hours of his life, Marvin was a slave to his addiction and at war with his father. The deadly combination of drugs and conflict would soon end his life. "14 years earlier, the Vietnam War was at its height, and Marvin Gaye was about to hit his peak. With the success of I Heard It Through the Grapevine, Marvin had won creative control over his next album.
Marvin had a lot of talent and a lot of creativity, that he had more ability than most of the producers that were there at the time.
Marvin took inspiration from the Vietnam War to write one of the most successful concept albums of all time. What's Going On was a tribute to his brother Frankie, who fought in the war.
What's Going On, Marvin dedicated to Frankie. Because of all his stories, he gave him the inspiration to write that album.
It was a masterpiece. With What's Going On, Marvin resurrected deeply held spiritual beliefs. He was delivering a message about poverty, racism, and war.
Marvin was the type of man who carried the world on his shoulders. Everything affected him. He felt he wanted to do something about it, and the only way he could do anything about it, he thought, was through music.
Marvin wanted his music to matter, that he would be the voice of someone and that would inspire social change.
But Motown was about upbeat dance music. Berry Gordy hated What's Going On. He refused to release it.
Berry Gordy's reaction was one of how would a Marvin Gaye fan relate to this?
Marvin came to my hotel room after I left Motown, and he told me, he says, "Kim," he says, "I recorded the best album I've ever done, and nobody likes it. Not my wife, not Berry Gordy, nobody likes it." And I said, "Marvin, do you like it?" He says, "It's the best thing I've ever done."
Marvin swore he'd never record another song unless Motown released What's Going On. They did in 1971. It was an immediate sensation. 500,000 copies sold in the first day.
Tonight, I'm so proud to have the greatest singer in the world in the auditorium tonight. It's Marvin Gaye.
The next year, Marvin made a triumphant return home. Washington, D.C. proclaimed May 1st Marvin Gaye Day. It gave Marvin something he'd never had before, the respect and admiration of his father.
To be hugged by his father in public, oh yes. That was a wonderful thing for my father to walk up to him and say, "Son, I'm so proud of you. This is wonderful. You have really caused me to be very proud of you." And so that was a good thing. Very good.
I wasn't there for Marvin Gaye Day in 1972, but I have a feeling it was, he talked about it a lot, and I think it was a big deal. I think it was like a little happy moment, actually, one of these Polaroid pictures where Mommy and Daddy and Marvin were reunited, and I think it was sweet.
Everyone in the community came, and it was a big deal, and then Wham, and people in Motown and others that may not have known Marvin's family that well saw, and I think they were in the public's eye, and so I think he wanted to do the right thing, and I think he really, just had a change of heart. He was going to give it his good shot. He was going to do his part if Dad would do his part.
I think it's one of those snapshots out of his life of perhaps what could have been had there been true harmony between Mom, Dad, and Marvin, had there been some kind of reconciliation, had there been some kind of deep understanding. On that day, it was okay. But that day was a very isolated day and a very extraordinary day, and a day not at all typical.
Tragically, this was a fleeting moment of happiness. Father and son would never find a lasting peace. The years of conflict and violence had left scars too deep to heal. It's early morning in LA. Marvin Gaye has less than 4 hours to live. Yesterday's argument over money has been simmering since last night.
Good morning, Mother Gaye.
Good morning.
Marvin's sister-in-law brings breakfast for his mother. She tells her to give it to Marvin. Even this small act of favoritism is seen as an insult by Marvin's father.
You could just tell. You could tell when Father's mom, just by the glare down the hallway. He was upset that Mother didn't say, give Father the breakfast instead of give Marvin the breakfast. Because I believe Father built up a jealousy over Marvin and Mother's relationship because she paid so much attention to Marvin.
Marvin was her baby, and you know, if there's any choice between the two, it would always be Marvin. And you know, he loved her so much, and if there was any animosity or jealousy, it would have been on the father's part, because I don't think Marvin felt that you know, she favored the father over him at any time.
As she sets down the breakfast, Marvin's sister-in-law notices he's in a bad way.
Marvin didn't look well. He looked absolutely wiped out. He looked like he hadn't slept for days. He just looked tired. It was almost like he just wanted to give up.
Okay, well, make sure you have some later, okay? It'll make you feel better.
In fact, over the last few weeks, those who knew him well believed Marvin was contemplating suicide.
He had a desire not to live. And so when I think of it in terms of the uses of drugs and everything, he was basically trying to take himself out. But he was a very strong individual.
As he wakes, Marvin is in pain physically and mentally. He's exhausted, his body wrecked by years of drug abuse. He was a man looking for a way out. Ten years earlier, Marvin was at the top of his game. What's Going On had secured his place among the greats of soul music. With his career on track, he tried to make a fresh start with his family. He moved to Hollywood and bought his parents a house in LA. But his success failed to bring the Gaye family closer together.
Once we moved into what we call the big house on Gramercy, things started deteriorating, I would say. I noticed that my father was becoming more and more recluse, which meant he didn't want to go anywhere or do anything. And it was my mother who was going places and doing things. My mother would accompany my brother on his tours. But it's not that he never asked my father. He would always ask him, and he would always say no.
Marvin's father still frowned on his son's career, even though he lived off his royalties.
His father withheld the approval to his son to the point of destroying him. Unfortunately, I beg to differ on father. I think he was very, very poisoned by negativity, and it was important to him to play takeaway with people that wanted something from him. And Marvin really wanted it from him. He hated it. He loved him at the same time. You know, it's just he didn't want any acknowledgement from him. Then he really wanted everything from him. So it was just like it just became a curse on Marvin, you know, and it just drove him into everything in his life like that: his music, his relationships, his kids, everything.
Marvin pulled away from his father again and immersed himself in the LA music scene.
L.A. in the 1970s had this kind of coke plague, where everybody was tooting and rooting and going crazy with cocaine, and particularly in the music world.
It wasn't long before Marvin was addicted to cocaine.
I saw it increase. First, it was just a little bit here and there if there were parties or this and that. It became just off the hook. Eating it, smoking it, any kind of way you can take it. It made him real nervous and uptight and paranoid. All the symptoms of that type of a drug,
Marvin's marriage to Anna Gordy fell apart, and he hooked up with 16-year-old Janice Hunter.
She was this absolutely gorgeous teenager.
They met while Marvin was recording Let's Get It On, his tribute to sexual freedom. She became his second wife, and Marvin set about creating his ideal woman.
I think he saw in Jan a way to mold a woman, take this teenager and turn her into what he thought a woman should be.
Marvin's ideal woman was his mother, but it was an image no one could live up to.
I believe that he held her up as a standard by which he gauged the morality, the ability to commit, the perseverance, the charm, the grace that his mom had. And then he, in turn, created a self-fulfilling prophecy that, nobody's going to be able to do it for me.
As Janice failed to meet his expectations, their relationship blew apart. Infidelities led to jealousy and quickly turned to rage.
Well, I had to go underground with my sister for a week or two because he was threatening to kill her. Until he called one day and said, all right, it's over. I want to see my girl. And she went back to him, and, then they went on another vacation.
Marvin had this ability to shoot himself in the foot. Marvin had this ability, or this uncanny psychological mechanism which would undermine happiness. And he would figure out a way to complicate his life. He loved drama. He loved emotional drama. He went for pain. He found ways to hurt himself over and over and over again.
It's very common that addicts and alcoholics will sabotage their own success because it's a lot easier to kind of stay in the addiction and get applause for doing 50%. Whereas if you're supposed to have it together, the expectation is that you're going to do 100%.
With a constant supply of cocaine, Marvin was becoming the violent, controlling man who had tormented him as a child, his father. On his last day, Marvin and his father are locked in a power struggle, seething at opposite ends of the house. A lifetime of resentment will soon end in tragedy. It's late morning. Marvin Gaye has just 2 hours to live. Marvin is staying with his parents in LA. Addicted to cocaine, he's suffering paranoid delusions. He thinks someone wants to kill him. His father is fed up with his son's madness and drug use. When he can't find some important business papers, his anger explodes.
Mother!
When he storms into Marvin's room, another bitter quarrel erupts.
Mother, where are those papers?
Marvin, his whole life, was told what to do, not just by his father, but by Motown and everybody else. And when he came back home, things from the past just sort of built up.
For the first time in his life, Marvin strikes his father.
And I'm sure Marvin may have pushed him. And when he fell, Marvin kicked him for what my mother said. And then when he got up, I went into his room.
I warned you. You don't talk to me. You don't do that.
Marvin's father leaves the room humiliated, all respect for his authority gone.
A lot of young men, they grow up in homes where they're under the thumb of an oppressive, critical parent who had convinced them all their lives that they weren't good enough. And so part of their growing up and coming into their own and being successful is an opportunity for them to say to the parent, screw you, I got the power now. See?
I knew in my heart that if my brother or any of us struck my father, that he would do something terrible. Because my father had always told us that he would if we ever did.
Five years earlier, ravaged by his cocaine addiction, Marvin's career had stalled and he was on the run from the taxman. Federal agents had seized his house in LA for failure to pay taxes, and he was living out of a van in Hawaii.
I'm trying to think of a good word to use for how he saw money. He was very free with it, for one thing. And he didn't take it truly serious. He didn't.
He wasn't a person that cared about money, so you couldn't lure him into doing this and doing that by mentioning some figure. It was just, he was a kind-hearted person.
He bought himself a Rolls Royce and bought himself a couple of houses and a place in Jamaica and never went to Jamaica. I mean, he just lived in chaos.
In Hawaii, Marvin was running from his problems. He was at war with everyone, his wife Janice, Motown, and the IRS.
That's where he fell into really great depression. And his cocaine habit worsened. You know, he was getting high all the time.
I guess the whole thing about Hawaii was just sort of like, take the people that were into the same kind of sadness and self-destructiveness and do it for a while.
After 7 months, mounting debt forces Marvin Gaye back onto the stage. But a tour in Britain ended in scandal when Gaye skipped a concert and left Princess Margaret waiting for hours. Once again, Marvin went into hiding, this time in Belgium. Away from the pressures and temptations of LA, Marvin began to rally. In 1982, CBS paid $1.5 million to buy out his contract with Motown.
And it was in Ostend where Marvin began to recover and build up enough strength to make his sort of last comeback.
Marvin was off cocaine, but his failed relationships with women haunted him. Ritz visited him in Belgium, where he saw Gaye's apartment filled with sadomasochistic drawings.
I think he was tortured by the fact that he never had a good romantic female relationship. And I remember saying to Marvin, this is sick. What you really need is sexual healing. And he said, I love that idea. I want, you know, just sort of write a poem about it. So I wrote these lyrics, and he immediately took them and put a melody to it.
Sexual Healing and the album Midnight Love became the first hits Marvin had had in 9 years, winning him 2 Grammys. But back in LA, he became hooked once again on cocaine. On his final concert tour, Marvin's addiction spiraled out of control. While millions of fans reveled in his performance, backstage, Marvin was self-destructing.
It was not an easy tour to keep control of, and it become pathetic because you had loved ones bringing in drugs, and You couldn't keep it away from it.
I went to a couple of concerts, but I was not on the tour. I wouldn't even go close to it. It was crazy. He thought someone was trying to kill him.
Marvin insisted on having his brother beside him at all times as a decoy for his imagined killer. They looked so much alike. The cocaine was driving Marvin insane.
That is very consistent with heavy daily cocaine use. And actually, one of the number one reasons that we see addicts in a psychiatric unit is for a drug-induced psychosis.
It's the beginning of, I think, the most tortured part of his life, when he loses his mind. And out of his mind constructs a kind of a screenplay of his own death. And it all begins, I think, on this final tour.
As the tour ground on, Marvin began stripping down to his underwear while singing Sexual Healing.
And to me, it was very sad because it showed that he wasn't feeling the love that people were offering him. And he was feeling like an object. Ultimately, he didn't understand that he was deeply loved by his fans, deeply loved for who he was, this complicated character.
After the tour, a broken Marvin Gaye retreated to his parents' house. It was a fatal mistake.
He returned to the source of his psychological dilemma. And by now it's worse. It's exacerbated by his drug use, by his dad's alcoholism. There's no clarity.
Marvin Gaye has less than 1 hour to live. In a violent argument, Marvin has just struck his father for the first time in his life. Some believe he knew exactly what the consequence would be.
Kicking your father. Son, Marvin.
I told him if you keep bothering your father, he means it when he says, I brought you in this world, and if you ever get me out, I'll take you out.
After bringing breakfast to Marvin, his sister-in-law is back in her apartment next to the main house. Marvin's brother Frankie is with her. They're unaware of the fight going on next door.
Marvin! Kicking.
By beating his father, some believe Marvin had found a way to end his life.
Marvin was really and truly, as he explained to me, in no uncertain terms, he didn't want to live.
Without explanation, he just shot him.
I heard the pops of the gun.
Frank, I just heard a gunshot.
What shot? I didn't hear a thing.
No, I heard 2 gunshots like 2 seconds ago.
Are you sure?
And he said,
sure
oh no,
you
that
didn't
was
hear
just a car on the freeway. It must have been. And I said, Frankie, it sounded like a gun to me. And he said, no, we live right next to the freeway, you know. She collapsed in my arms, and I'm asking her, what's wrong? What's wrong? And all that I could hear was shot. And I'm like, you're shot? And she said, no, father shot Marvin.
Marvin Gaye has been shot twice, once in the shoulder, once in the chest. One of the bullets has damaged several vital organs, and he's losing blood fast. Marvin's brother Frankie rushes into the house, but he's cautious, scared that his father may attack again. Marvin is conscious when Frankie finds him. He yells to Irene to call 911 and then waits with his brother for the paramedics to arrive. His father is still armed and in the house.
He was conscious when Frankie was holding him. But
Paramedics arrive in under 10 minutes, but they refuse to enter the house while Marvin's father and the gun are still inside.
Father? Father?
So I found Father. He was sitting on his bed.
It's Irene.
And I'm asking him, where did you put the gun, Father? And he was just sitting there, very calm. And he looked up at me and said, "What gun?" It was just like there was nobody home. And I said, "The paramedics are here and they need to come in and they won't come until the gun is outside. Please tell me where the gun is." And he just bowed his head. I was going through his drawers and everything, looking for the gun. And I flipped his pillow and it was under his pillow.
Marvin is dying in his brother's arms. A full 20 minutes pass before paramedics can get to him.
If Marvin didn't die on the spot, he died on his way to the hospital.
I remember the one at the end of the stretcher asking me, did I know his name? And when I said, it's Marvin Gaye, he looked at me twice and he said, "You don't mean the Marvin Gaye?" And I said, "Yes," and he just started to cry.
You can't really describe the hurt and the pain. Because when you love someone, it's just a hurt that you cannot describe.
I remember coming out of a baseball game on that day, on April 1st, April Fool's Day, and hearing on the radio Marvin Gaye's, father has shot and killed Marvin. And I thought to myself, that's how he's going to do it. Oh my God. That's so Marvin. That's so perversely brilliant.
The official time of death is 1:01 p.m., April 1st, 1984. The next day, Marvin Gaye would have turned 45. Marvin Gaye Sr. pleaded guilty to voluntary manslaughter and received a 5-year suspended sentence. His son remains one of the most influential musicians of his time. John F. Kennedy Jr. was an American prince, the son of a beloved president and a beautiful trend-setting aristocrat.
The enormity of the experience that this kid had to go through is amazing.
My father stood before you.
He carried the weight of public expectation on his shoulders.
He knew that he was being groomed. He knew that everyone had a plan.
Hounded by paparazzi and constant gossip column headlines, John takes refuge in his passion for flying.
John, are we lost?
No, we're fine,
John!
I miss the little boy I knew. I miss him so much,
Why did he decide to fly that evening, risking his own life and the lives of his loved ones? City, July 15th, 1999. John Kennedy Jr. begins the last 24 hours of his life. He is more than a celebrity. He's American royalty, a cultural icon. It's early evening, and John is meeting his wife Carolyn and her sister Lauren at the Stanhope Hotel Bar in New York City. He's nursing a broken ankle sustained when he crash-landed his ultralight aircraft 6 weeks ago. John, Carolyn and Lauren had planned to fly to the wedding of John's cousin, Rory Kennedy, but there's a problem. John's marriage is in trouble, and Carolyn doesn't want to go. John moved out of the couple's Tribeca loft to a room here at the Stanhope Hotel just 2 days ago.
Well, John had had a fight with Carolyn, and she was such a high-maintenance person that you didn't make up with her in 5 minutes. It would take hours or maybe even days to make up with her from one of their big fights. And so he stayed at a hotel. He went off and stayed at a hotel. Again, it didn't mean they were separating. It just meant the intensity of their argument and how the seriousness of the discussions they would have to have.
They both had a very strong temper, not temper, but character. You know, Caroline had a very, very strong character.
Carolyn has been overwhelmed by the public attention that follows John everywhere he goes.
She didn't know who she was. She got lost a little bit, and that was a big problem.
Well, John had no idea when he married Carolyn that she would be unable to deal with the media pressure. After all, she was in public relations beforehand. She seemed to love to be in the limelight. She seemed to be the perfect wife for John. But immediately after their honeymoon, they come back to their flat in Soho, and she can't deal with it. There are the photographers waiting there. She simply can't deal with it, and she becomes a recluse. She just stays in that apartment for days on end.
And I won't take no for an answer.
In an effort to broker a compromise, Carolyn's sister, Lauren Bissett, has pressured the couple to meet for drinks.
It'll be a great idea. We'll all fly up together, and we'll have fun.
She encourages them to put aside their differences, at least for the weekend, and go as planned to John's cousin's wedding.
Why don't you just put the last few weeks behind you?
I just want this to stop.
What is the matter with you two?
Excuse me.
John cherishes Kennedy family gatherings.
She's so stubborn, my little sister.
It's a chance for him to shed the public persona and relax with people who've shared triumphs and tragedies with him all his life.
The Kennedys have had so much tragedy. They're used to circling the wagons. They're used to pulling together, grieving together, and resolving together. I've never seen a family like it. They're always there for one another.
I want to try.
Carolyn finally agrees. They will all fly together tomorrow afternoon.
Control freak. But I love you for it.
John, Carolyn, and Lauren have just 23 hours to live.
John, how do you feel about special?
John F. Kennedy Jr. lived his entire life in the public eye. He was America's most eligible bachelor and, according to People magazine, the sexiest man alive. He dated film stars and married the socialite Carolyn Bessette. He was on tabloid front pages and a regular in celebrity gossip columns.
He wasn't thrown into a fire or a glare of media lights. He grew up there. I mean, he was the best at it. But it had this innocence about it. And that is probably the greatest lesson I learned from my friend was, don't be cynical. And to hear it from him was a beautiful thing.
I'm not a political leader, but I can speak for those of my age.
John lived with endless speculation about whether he had the ability to follow in the footsteps of a father he never knew. 38 years earlier, John Kennedy Jr. made history as the first child born to a US president-elect. John and Jackie Kennedy took Washington by storm, ushering in a whole new era.
The whole thing just changed. The wines, the food, the way people dressed, the way people felt about coming to the White House. The people who were honored there, the Nobel Prize winners, the intellects, the great museum directors, the university presidents. The guest lists were quality, 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 instead of politics, politics, politics.
The interest in it was unprecedented in American history. The magazines, the covers of the magazines, television, newspapers, radio, just nothing but the Kennedys.
John and his sister Caroline's enchanted childhood was constantly documented by an adoring media.
Kennedy's being the first television administration, as it were really a novelty in American history, and young, vibrant, energetic, charismatic couple with the two golden children. I mean, the first two kids to grow up in the White House since, I think, the days of Grover Cleveland.
Little John just caught everybody's hearts. He was so handsome and so natural and responsive.
But soon this idyllic time would be cut short by tragedy. John Kennedy Jr. has less than 22 hours to live. His marriage is in trouble and he's living alone in a New York hotel. Earlier this evening, John and his wife Carolyn were reconciled thanks to her sister Lauren. Now he's turned his attention to problems with work. 4 years ago, John launched a political magazine called George, but now sales have slowed and the magazine is floundering. John is up late, struggling to create a business plan to save the venture.
He had a magazine that was in trouble. It might fold if he didn't get an infusion of cash.
George was an important stepping stone for John Jr. It was something that he endeavored to do prior to entering the field of politics, which I think he recognized as an inevitable part of his life.
John will meet his publisher in the morning. His attempt to be regarded as a serious player in publishing will be tested.
Dealing with the bare-bone business of George was difficult for him. He did not enjoy it. He had to put on a suit and go into the boardroom and get berated.
John is under maximum stress, just when his life will depend on clear thinking. It's been a long day. He needs to get some sleep. Tomorrow morning's meeting could determine John Jr.'s fledgling political career. "36 years earlier, President John Kennedy and his spirited 2-year-old son had developed a unique bond.
President Kennedy was so thrilled to have a son, but he was like every father. Every father is thrilled to have a son. And here was this beautiful boy. And so he loved it when little John came to his office and examined everything and played with everything.
But on November 22nd, 1963, John Kennedy Jr.'s charmed childhood ended with a gunshot. His father was assassinated in Dallas, Texas. The president was buried on John's 3rd birthday.
He said often that he remembered nothing of his father, not even that famous scene where he's saluting the horse-drawn carriage that's carrying his father's body.
This image would haunt John for the rest of his life.
He was, in a way, in search of his father his entire life.
John Kennedy Jr. will spend much of his life trying to live up to the expectations of a man he can barely remember.
The assassination changed everything. The White House suddenly closed up like a clamshell. Usually the place was full of happy chatter and the clicking of heels on those marble hallways, but all of a sudden it was just deathly silence. It was a grief-stricken house.
It was a watershed. America had just endless optimism and promise that one sees dissipating from that day.
Just 2 weeks later, John left the White House, where he'd spent the first 3 years of his life.
Jackie and her 2 children moved into a house in Georgetown, an elegant house. But it was surrounded by paparazzi and by journalists and by tourists.
What was so terrible about it was that they couldn't go anywhere or do anything without being besieged by the press, the media. They had sightseeing buses that would stop in front of the house. Carolyn Kennedy and her brother John would leave the house, and people would pounce on them and tear at them and grab their clothes.
It was impossible for her to have the real life she wanted to have for her family.
In less than a year, Jackie fled with her children to New York City. Desperate for a father figure for her young son, Jackie turned to Bobby Kennedy. Robert Kennedy's courage and determination to follow in his brother's footsteps and run for the presidency made a huge impression on John Jr.
Joseph Kennedy, the Kennedy patriarch, really had trained his sons that one must pick up the banner for the next. Now it was Bobby's turn to take up that banner and to get to the White House himself.
My thanks to all of you, and now it's on to Chicago, and let's win there.
But on June 6, 1968, the unimaginable happened. Just 5 years after the death of his father, John Jr.'s uncle, Robert Kennedy, was shot and killed as he campaigned for the leadership of the Democratic Party. Now, 7-year-old John Jr. was fatherless again. As an adult, John Kennedy Jr. was reluctant to speak about the tragedy he experienced as a child. But the media speculated endlessly and dubbed it the Curse of the Kennedys.
The title I selected for this book, The Kennedys, Dynasty and Disaster, made a lot of sense. There seems to be some kind of a curse hanging over the Kennedys.
On John's last day, the curse would strike again. John Kennedy Jr. has 14 hours to live. Last night, he reconciled with his estranged wife, Carolyn, who agreed to join him at a family wedding at Martha's Vineyard. John plans to take Carolyn and her sister Lauren in his light aircraft. They plan to leave at 5:30 this afternoon. But John Jr. has a busy day ahead. He's already tired, having worked long into the night preparing a new business plan to save George, his political magazine, from financial disaster. This morning, John will present his new plan to the bosses at Hachette Philipacci Publishing. John's hopes for his future depend on the outcome of this meeting.
Gentlemen, always ready for good news. Have a seat.
Klieger told him, it's over, it's done, we're not gonna pick you up. After your 5-year contract is done, we've done wonderfully with the magazine, we feel you've been a great success, but it's time to move on.
John knows Hachette's CEO, Jack Klieger, is tough, but he's determined to turn the situation around.
The business plan that he had presented was a strategic plan, but it didn't have, in my opinion, enough specific tactical executions that I could then go and present that to my bosses and feel comfortable with that presentation. John was very interested in expanding the George brand, and I agreed that it was an important element of what we were doing, or what we could do. John obviously was a magnet to be on television being interviewed, but he didn't really want it to be John Kennedy as the driving force. He wanted George to be there, so he wanted to get more of his editors and more of the content onto both the television and the internet.
Hachette wants John to trade on the Kennedy name, but John has other ideas, and that's frustrated the publisher's executives.
I would like your input.
He got very, very specific, and his eyes got very straight when he said he didn't want his name taken advantage of by the company.
This is not a comfortable experience for John, but no one would ever know. He's a man who's learned too well to hide behind his public persona. With his charm offensive, the meeting goes better than expected.
framework in which we can
So we
build.
went through a number of specifics that I wanted him to get into, which he was prepared to do and was willing to do. But he was upbeat. He thought he could have those specifics ready for me by the end of that day, which I said, that's fine.
We're on the right track, John. John manages to buy himself some time. Time he doesn't have.
Delighted. Have a great day.
By the age of 8, John Kennedy Jr. had lost both his father and his uncle to violent assassinations.
At that point, Jackie said, my God, if they're killing Kennedys, then my kids are next. And this is what led to the marriage with Aristotle Onassis.
Jackie's courtship with Onassis was pounced on by the media and made international headlines.
Aristotle Onassis was Greek, and he was the richest man on the planet Earth.
Jackie married Onassis in part because she liked money, and the Kennedys hadn't really left her that much money.
Less than 5 months after the death of Robert Kennedy, John's mother marries self-made shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis. But the American public was outraged. Jackie had betrayed their trust by apparently casting aside the sacred memory of their fallen hero.
Americans loved Jackie, but they loved her not as a woman with her own life. They loved her as the eternal widow.
With her children protected by the Onassis' private security force, John's life regained stability. Aristotle Onassis lavished time, love, and money on John Jr.
I think he liked Ari Onassis a lot. I think Ari liked him a lot, and I think he found Ari to be a very interesting, avuncular sort of figure.
But this oasis of calm was not destined to last. Within 3 years, the marriage between Aristotle Onassis, the Greek self-made billionaire, and Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy, the Virginia blue blood, began to fall apart.
I think that fact that they were so oil and water-ish, night and day-ish, have you call it what you will. I mean, his ideal of fun was to sit around in a nightclub till 3 in the morning, breaking glasses, dancing the Greek dances, singing the Greek songs, whereas Jackie liked to curl up with a good book at 9 p.m.
Then, tragedy once again reshapes John Jr.'s life. Aristotle Onassis loses his only son, Alexander, in a plane crash.
For the Greek, as the Kennedys used to refer to Aristotle Onassis, for the Greek to lose his one and only son was for Aristotle Onassis an absolutely tragic, traumatic, life-ending event.
Unable to cope with his loss, Ari severed all ties with young John. For the 3rd time in less than 10 years, John Jr. lost a father figure. Just after midday, John is busy in his Manhattan office. The meeting with his publisher is forgotten as John hits the ground running. As the editor-in-chief of the magazine, he's got to push the next issue out the door.
He had deadlines. He had to do so many things, and he was responsible. And it became, I think it became a little stressful. He explained to me once that when the magazine has to go out, it has to go out. And sometimes you have to be there all night.
Locked into a frenetic pace, John is about to make a series of minor mistakes that will mean the difference between life and death.
Hello.
At 1 p.m., he gets a call from Essex Airport and arranges for his Piper Saratoga to be fueled and ready for 5:30 p.m.
This afternoon's a turn-off.
But as the afternoon unfolds, his departure plan will be delayed.
Need that 10 minutes ago. Good ending.
1:05 p.m., a pilot he regularly flies with calls to ask if he needs a co-pilot. John, inexplicably, refuses the offer.
The strangest, most inexplicable thing that happened that last day was that John didn't take a co-pilot with him. He was such a careful pilot that of the 200 or so hours he had flown, he had an inordinate number with a co-pilot. I mean, most pilots with 200 hours would not have had 70 or 80% of those hours with the pilot beside him. But he knew he wasn't a great pilot. Why John didn't take the pilot with him is one of those things we're just never going to know.
4:30 p.m. The drive to Essex Airport takes about an hour. If he's going to make his 5:30 departure and fly to Martha's Vineyard in daylight, he should leave now. But John takes time to email his friend John Barlow to offer condolences on the death of his mother. 4:30 p.m. Running late, John calls Jack Klieger and postpones their meeting until the following week.
Hi, Jack. Hi. And he did call me at around 4:30 or so to say that he'd gotten really backed up. They were closing an issue, and he also had some other things he had to take care of, and he had to leave for the airport that night, so he asked if he could get it to me the following week. And I said, that's fine, as long as you can see that it gets sent to me where I was just going to be on vacation not far away. So we agreed that I'd get it the following week, and that was the last conversation we had.
Yeah, I know.
5 p.m. John calls his friend Billy Noonan and says he will not be able to make his anniversary celebration. They plan to meet later that weekend, but John will never see his friend again. 6:32 p.m. John logs on to the weather service. He reads that the conditions are hazy, visibility 5 miles. But John fails to take into consideration that the measuring device only sees what is directly above.
That machine is only looking straight up in the sky. So in other words, if you have a clear sky right over the machine will report clear sky. But if you have 500 feet away, a layer of fog surrounding the machine still will report a clear sky unless that fog is right over the machine.
Hello?
John hasn't flown alone in his Piper Saratoga since he broke his ankle 6 weeks ago. But he's too busy putting out fires at George magazine to calmly evaluate his plan to fly. 6:40 p.m. John leaves the office more than 2 hours later than intended. He's neglected to calculate the additional time he will lose driving in Friday rush hour traffic.
Long weekend.
When you learn to fly, you are taught to follow certain procedures. Checking the weather, doing a pre-flight inspection, checking yourself, making sure that you're feeling up to it. If you skip one of them, it opens the door for error.
John has made a number of errors in judgment this afternoon. In less than 3 hours, he'll be dead. 22 years earlier, John celebrated his 16th birthday at the Kennedy compound. Despite the numerous tragedies he'd faced, friends say he embraced life with energy and enthusiasm.
Some strange appreciation of life, this desire to go out and do things, to see things, like a cat. He was just curious. He wanted to see everything and do everything.
But John was at best an average student. Teachers said he had difficulty concentrating in class.
He had a problem with ADD, attention deficit disorder. Started taking medication for that when he was a teenager, and Jackie sent him to a therapist in New York for that reason.
His mother wanted John to toughen up and experience life away from the Kennedy compound. She sent him to Guatemala as a Peace Corps volunteer, and the following summer on an outward-bound survival course.
Jackie was worried that her son wasn't serious. She was worried he was going to get in trouble, get off the right path. He was just going to be a playboy.
It was during this period that John discovered a new passion: acting.
He loved it. He loved it. His first was Cyrano of Bergerac. He was great on Cyrano. John was a charmer. A charmer snake. He was on stage. He was just on his element. He loved it.
For John, acting was a chance to do his own thing and to escape for a moment the Kennedy name.
He was, in fact, very charming, playing roles of down and outers, alcoholics. This was what he was best at, not playing somebody from his own background. It gave him the freedom to be someone other than himself.
Deliberately avoiding Princeton and Harvard, where his father studied, John enrolled as a freshman at the smaller and more liberal Brown University. There, he was constantly monitored.
Jackie watched over John very closely, often in ways he didn't even know. I mean, she got his grades, she'd call his professors. She was omnipresent.
Jackie made sure John knew he must fulfill his duties as a Kennedy. He was often drafted in to introduce his Uncle Teddy at political functions.
Ladies and gentlemen, my uncle, Ted Kennedy.
And when he wanted to apply to drama school as a graduate student, Jackie insisted he study law.
It was Jackie who ultimately put her foot down regarding his acting career and who said, look, you know, you're going to go to law school and you're going to study law and you're going to work.
Succumbing to intense pressure, John suppressed his passion for acting and reluctantly entered New York University Law School. It was the first step towards accepting his Kennedy inheritance. John is already more than 2 hours late for his scheduled flight. It's almost 7 p.m. when he picks up Lauren, his wife's sister. John originally planned to fly out of Essex County Airport for Martha's Vineyard at 5:30. But driving in Friday rush hour traffic, it will take him over an hour to get there, and he'll be forced to make the last crucial minutes of his flight in darkness. With no break in the traffic, John and Lauren are still at least 45 minutes from the airport. He could have called to reschedule the flight, but he did not. John's wife, Carolyn, has spent the afternoon shopping for a dress to wear to the family wedding. She decided to travel alone to Essex Airport. Now she too is stuck in traffic. She does not confer with John and her sister about the delay. Carolyn and John have always had a tempestuous relationship. When they met, she was well connected in the fashion industry. He was America's most eligible bachelor. They met when Carolyn was a shopping consultant for Calvin Klein. John fell madly in love.
They caught each other's eye, and that spark didn't go away. That spark turned into a big flame, in many ways.
They were America's golden couple, but by their last day, cracks have begun to appear. John has been accused of being insensitive. Some say Carolyn is controlling, a skilled manipulator.
My wife called her a witch, but a good witch. And that she had this power about her, a mystery and an intelligence, I think, more than anything. She didn't necessarily not let you know what she was thinking, but you knew that she understood you. She looked you in the eye, and you knew that she touched your soul a little bit, and you felt that, and you appreciated that in her. And John saw that right away with her. As I said, when I first saw her, I looked at the ground and tried to get out of the room, frankly. And they didn't even know each other that well yet. He was watching me react to her, and I think, and a lot of people react that way to her, and that was attractive to him.
They were two powerful personalities who couldn't seem to get along, even though they believed they were meant for each other.
John and Carolyn's relationship was really based on the idea that they were soulmates, that they'd found the counterpoint of each other. They were talking about kids and talking about him becoming a senator, and she'd smoothed out.
John and Carolyn make slow progress towards the airport.
What's the plan?
Whatever their hopes, their future together will be cut tragically short.
Slow news day, I guess, huh?
John, a lot of people waiting for you here. How do you feel about this? Is it true that you passed the bar?
Apparently it's true. I got the official word not long ago, so it's true.
What do you mean not long ago?
John began his career in law as an assistant district attorney in New York City.
Absolutely. What kind of cases are you looking forward to?
Well, whatever they give me. John, all this attention here to the pressure, taking...
Jackie was proud of her son, but her plans for John's future would soon be derailed.
He said, I'm no Clarence Darrow. What do you want out of my life? He didn't enjoy being a lawyer. That kind of lifestyle didn't suit him.
I mean, he wasn't a great DA. I mean, a lot of the bad guys were so delighted to meet John that they confessed. And He wasn't a prosecutor, okay? He was too nice to be a prosecutor.
John became restless and dreamed of starting a political magazine. But the greatest obstacle to achieving this new goal would again be tragedy. When John was 33 years old, Jackie Kennedy was diagnosed with cancer. Putting his dreams aside, John devoted himself to the care of his mother.
We always thought, oh, she's going to be okay, you know, because she told me, you know, I'm going to be okay, don't now get nervous about it.
But despite her courage and John's constant care, 5 months later, Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis was dead.
What he suffered the most is after Madam died. It was a big, big void on his life.
For John, it was extraordinarily sad, but it was the evocation, the birth of a man. I mean, the day after she died, there he was in front of her building on 1045th Avenue in a blue suit, talking to the press.
My mother passed on. She was surrounded by her friends and her family.
Her death was horrible. It was the saddest I've ever seen. But he came out of it with her spirit firmly behind him.
It's a reading from the second letter of St. Paul to the Thessalonians. But I would not have you to be ignorant, brethren.
Jackie was gone, and although devastated by the loss, John Kennedy Jr. was now finally free to chart his own destiny.
She told him on her deathbed, go use your name. You earned it.
Delayed at the office and then by rush hour traffic, John Kennedy Jr. arrives at Essex Airport almost 3 hours behind schedule. He has less than 2 hours to live. John drops Lauren off at the terminal to wait for Carolyn while he drives to a nearby convenience store. He is relaxed as he goes about his normal routine, even though the sun is setting and it will soon be dark. Also, unknown to him, bad weather is moving in.
I actually was planning on making that same trip from Caldwell to Martha's Vineyard about three hours prior to John F. Kennedy Jr.'s departure. But I chose to cancel due to the reduced visibility in the weather.
Another pilot who has just landed and is aware of the reduced visibility tries to warn John. If this pilot had found John, it is possible that he might have changed his mind about flying. But John is now at the convenience store, calmly signing autographs for excited well-wishers.
He had decided before making the trip that he was going to do it by himself. John felt, well, look, I'm out of this contraption in my ankle. My ankle feels good. I'm taking pain pills, but nevertheless, I'm ready to go.
For John, the physical limitation was a challenge. That was the Kennedy way.
This is a family that's out there that lives on the edge. They feel somehow that the only way that they can enjoy life is by living it in the most extreme sense. And if you do that enough, I mean, the odds are bound to take hold.
He did not take excessive risks in the sense that I saw some of his other family members doing. But when it came to flying, he was almost anal. I went up with my family the week before, and I would have gone up the week after. When he landed, it was beautiful.
You know, a lot of people said to me, why didn't you warn him? It would have been completely inappropriate for me to warn him or to give him advice, because I don't know his proficiency, I don't know, you know, what his skill level is, and I don't know if there's a pilot or an instructor on the airplane with him.
It's now 8:25 p.m. John had originally planned to make this trip in daylight. Leaving now means that soon he will be flying in the dark over the Atlantic Ocean.
Is that John's plane over there?
Yes, that's John's plane.
Is that his microphone?
Yes, that's his wife.
We should go over. Let's go. Thank you.
Tragically, one of Jackie Kennedy's last wishes would have saved her son's life had he kept his word.
She exacted from John a promise that he wouldn't pursue flying lessons after her death. But after her death, he did, in fact, resume them.
John couldn't resist his passion for flying. He began with ultralight planes, then bought a Cessna and quickly got his pilot's license.
I know that he seemed very happy in an airplane when I was with him. It gave him a lot of joy, I know that.
3 months before he died, John purchased a Piper Saratoga, a much faster, more powerful aircraft. Flying was his escape route from all the public attention.
John had an illusion that ordinary people had a kind of freedom he didn't have. He didn't see that you and I are imprisoned in our way just as he was. And he saw it in flying as a way to have that absolute freedom, go above the clouds, and he was his own person.
The year after his mother's death, John fulfilled an ambition she would have been proud of. He launched his political magazine, George,
Ladies and gentlemen, meet George.
to huge critical acclaim.
The beginning of George was like an eagle taking off for him, that he happened to be riding. He loved it, the creative process, the fact that he had come up with a business idea and it seemed to make sense. It wasn't just coming together because of his name. It was journalism. He loved that. His favorite part of George was talking to the Dalai Lama and even Larry Flint. He loved this interview with Larry Flint because Larry's kind of the ultimate rebel in a way. And the Supreme Court ruling, that's who John... Larry Flint was an underdog, and that's who John associated with. I mean, how could John Kennedy Jr. be an underdog? That's who we thought he was.
Politics is not merely pulling a lever on Election Day or covering a debate on Capitol Hill. Politics is really about personalities and ideas. It's about
He found himself with George. I mean, even if it failed, he knew all that magazine had done for him, and it had given an entree to a whole new world.
After years of trying to find his place in the world, it seemed that by his early 30s, John Jr. was poised to create his own version of what it means to be a Kennedy. It was a vision that, tragically, would never be realized.
Why don't we see any lights, John? John!
John Kennedy Jr. is about to fly with his wife and sister-in-law to a family wedding in Martha's Vineyard.
Good.
It is now 8:35 p.m. Only an hour of daylight remains. John should have left at 5:30. Each individual pilot has to make his own decision to fly after careful consideration of all the variables.
Ready to taxi with Mike. Right turn around northeast bound. Not permanent.
8:34 p.m. John contacts air traffic control. The conditions on the ground are slightly hazy.
The problem with haze is that you can take off and the first 1,000 feet or so as you're climbing out could be clear. But when you get higher, you could enter a haze layer and not be prepared for it. And that happens very often in the summer.
John is only certified for Visual Flight Rules, or VFR.
Ready to go, guys?
The theory behind VFR is that you will be able to maneuver the airplane by looking out the window and being able to determine the plane's relationship to the horizon.
When the horizon is not visible, the pilot is essentially flying blind. To be certified to fly under these conditions, a pilot must go through rigorous training, learning to use only instruments to navigate.
Making it right down for departure. Affirmative, right down with departure on 22.
John has very limited expertise in instrument navigation and is not certified. As they take off, John has left a goodwill note, which he will never read. John's departure is now so late that Lauren's hosts for her weekend on Martha's Vineyard arrive to pick her up just as she is leaving.
Lauren Bissett. She's flying in with John and Carolyn. Are they here yet?
Haven't seen the plane. We checked with air traffic control.
John could have filed a flight plan as he left, but he did not.
It's a good idea, particularly on a night flight, to file a VFR flight plan. The advantage being that once you file and activate it, there will be someone waiting for you to cancel it when you arrive at your destination.
Some people will say John took too many risks, but he had to take those risks to assert his own manhood. Yes, it was too much, but the question is how far and where do you stop? And he was somewhat addicted to it. He just needed the rush.
Daylight is rapidly diminishing. In less than an hour, John, Carolyn, and Lauren will be dead. One year earlier, it seemed John Kennedy Jr. was set to fulfill the expectations of an adoring American public. His political magazine, George, was doing well. He was moving in all the right political circles, and he'd found the woman he wanted to spend his life with, publicist Carolyn Bissett.
How was the honeymoon, John? Hold it, please, for us. Look this way. Oh.
Foiling intense media speculation, he orchestrated a secret wedding on Cumberland Island off the Georgia coast.
John, we're not getting you. Can you look back up and look this way, Carolyn?
We weren't supposed to tell anybody. I remember when they told me in July. You know, it was a long time to keep it until September.
I remember him pumping his fist that they'd gotten it done. Like, yes, we did it. To her satisfaction. And it was a wonderful wedding, it really was.
The wedding made headlines around the world. They were portrayed as the perfect couple. But sparks flew between Carolyn and John from the moment they met.
He liked the fact that there was trouble there. And it wasn't until he married her, he saw that the trouble wasn't going to end.
She was strong-willed. I mean, she had her own point of view. She was not some little housewife or something like that was just going to sit there. She had sophisticated friends when she met them. She had a nice life. She comes from a very nice family. I mean, she had her own personality, and she had her own point of view.
As they faced up to their problems, the media onslaught was unbearable for Carolyn.
There was always some guy lurking around, and who would take her picture or run up to her, or just invade her space. And I don't think anybody can be prepared for that.
Then rumors of Carolyn's drug use began to surface in the tabloids.
Carolyn used coke the way most people used coke from that generation. When they partied, it's the chosen recreational drug of the fashion industry.
Next, John was spotted with ex-girlfriends and affairs were suspected, something his friends dispute.
Monogamous guy, frankly. You see his loyalty with his friends. It was the same things with his girlfriends. He had every skirt thrown at him on earth, frankly. He was an innocent. He was very innocent on that level, and you'd like to think that he was a little maybe more mysterious, but frankly, he stuck to his knitting.
Most damaging, John's magazine began to fail, and his ability to live up to his father's legacy was questioned. John hoped to save his marriage. He wanted his magazine to thrive again, and he wanted to establish his own reputation. All he needed was time. The sun has set. It's now nautical twilight. It's hazy, but not totally obscure. It will be completely dark in 10 minutes. For now, John is still able to fly with visual references.
As you get farther away from New York City, you're not going to be able to see lights enough to give you a straight line for the horizon. It's basically a black hole.
Flying over water at nighttime, you pretty much lose that horizon. You're solely referencing your instruments.
20 minutes from his destination, John has two possible routes. He can fly up the coast to Connecticut and Rhode Island, keeping the lights on the shoreline as a visual reference, and then turn south over Cape Cod to the airport at Martha's Vineyard. This route will only add 5 minutes to his flight time.
Of all my trips I made to Martha's Vineyard, I've always flown that particular route because it puts you over water the least distance.
Or he can take a riskier but shorter route and leave the coast and fly a direct line straight out over Rhode Island Sound and the Atlantic Ocean, a distance of 34 miles from the airport at Martha's Vineyard. Choosing the route is a pivotal decision.
Okay, we're leaving the coast.
John chooses to fly the direct route, out over the ocean, into the void. This choice will cost him his life. In just 2 minutes, John will be flying in complete darkness. In 5 minutes, he'll be dead.
John, are we lost? No, we're fine. Sit back. Why don't we see any lights, John?
John is flying at 5,500 feet in complete darkness. He is 34 miles from the airport at Martha's Vineyard. He cannot see any visual landmarks, but he starts to descend. 9:39 p.m. There is still no sign of the lights at the airport.
Can you see anything out there?
John levels off at 2,500 feet and searches desperately for some visual reference, a light, a horizon line, stars, anything to give him a sense of direction.
John!
He starts to become disoriented.
Spatial disorientation occurs when you don't refer to your instruments, and the natural tendency is to believe what your body is telling you.
John does not have enough experience in his new plane and is ill-equipped to fly in these conditions. He relies on his instincts just when he needs to focus on his instruments. The plane now banks sharply to the left and climbs. 9:40 p.m. Trying desperately to compensate for the left bank, he turns the yoke hard to the right. The plane slides into a descent, speeding toward the ocean. Completely disoriented, John believes the plane is now level and yanks the yoke towards him to bring the nose up. Instead, the plane banks even more to the right. The engine races as it picks up speed and enters a free fall called the graveyard spiral. The Saratoga plummets towards the ocean. There is no way John can recover.
I miss him, you know, I miss the little boy I knew, and, you know, I couldn't believe that he was going to finish this way.
Coast Guard will resume its air search in the morning.
Around the world, feelings of shock and disbelief resonate as news spreads of John Kennedy Jr.'s disappearance. The media descends on Martha's Vineyard as a massive search is ordered.
I knew that he was dead. They couldn't find, but planes don't go missing.
There is a suitcase with a business card and the business card attached to a little plastic insert within the suitcase is in the name of Lauren Bassett.
John Kennedy Jr. died on the 16th of July, 1999. 6 days later, on the USS Briscoe, the Kennedys once again gather to bury one of their own as an entire nation mourns. With his death, the world will never know what his true contribution might have been.